So Victor, I don't know hardly anything about you other than you're a land investor. You kind of started from scratch and just bootstrapped your way up. So why don't you just share with the audience and with the viewers, kind of share your story. And if I have any questions, I'll kind of jump in and we'll just go from there.
Okay, you have any popcorn? Because this is going to be a long, interesting story.
All right, sounds good.
Well, maybe not interesting, long and boring.
No, I doubt
So
that.
I got started in land investing in 2016. I live in San Francisco. I was a software engineer and I was working in Silicon Valley. So I was traveling the distance wasn't necessarily far, but
Mhm.
because of the traffic and all of that, it was very annoying. I'm just stuck in my car. I
Right.
tried to use public transportation, but it was actually slower and more expensive than actually paying for gas every day. So I was just like, all right, I guess it is what it is. But as I'm driving down the road and on the freeway, I'm noticing people zip past me in the carpool lane. Some states call it the HOV lane.
Right.
And I'm like, how are they in there by themselves without having somebody else? What's going on? And I found out they're driving an electric vehicle. And in California, if you're driving an electric vehicle, you can use the carpool lanes without having any other occupants. I'm like, I
Uh,
need to get in that. So this is when Tesla was just starting to get big. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm into cars. I love the turbocharged cars, and I worked in regular cars, but electric cars seem kind of interesting. So I'm like, all right, well, how do I afford one? And I saw the price. I'm like, oh, hell no. But I'm like, well, maybe I can earn a little something because, I have other bills to pay. At the time I was married, I had a kid. So I was like, all right, well, what can I do? Listen to some podcasts. I stumbled upon land investing and I'm like, you know what? Of all the options I've heard, this seems to make the
mhm.
most sense to me. Everybody know number one, real estate is valuable no matter what form it is. Number
Absolutely.
two, people like to get into real estate because of rentals and things like that because that's what people know. But I don't want to deal with tenants. I didn't want to have to worry about house inspections. I didn't want to deal with chasing people down for rent. I didn't want to worry about the toilet breaking in the middle of the night and I'm responsible
Mhm.
for it. I don't want to worry about any of that. Land didn't have those problems. So I'm like, okay, well, how good is the money? Then I'm hearing people doubling, tripling their money, quadrupling their money. So I'm like, okay, this sounds too good to be true. But I looked into it and it was legit. The beautiful part about land, at least was for me, I didn't need to have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to get started. My first property I bought for literally $104.
Wow.
Yeah. And how did I get that price? Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I bought a course from a well-known land personality. And at the time in 2016, the info was okay. It wasn't terrible, but
Right.
that person was just getting started learning how to teach and all that. But I'm like, all right, well, I took the assessed value of the property that I saw from the county. I just divided it by four, giving me a quarter of
Mhm.
the price. And that's how I got to that price. And the person said, yeah, bought a couple of properties that way. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to sell. The course didn't really teach you that. They give you a little
Right.
overview. So, like a lot of people, I struggled. And hell, I didn't even know how to collect money from folks. Like, I remember the first time I had somebody on the hook, and I'm like, all right, you want to buy? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, okay, all right, what do I do? What do I do? All right, let me call you back when I figure out how to take money. Obviously, that person didn't come back. So that was a waste opportunity, but
let,
I
let,
learned.
let me
Go
ask
ahead.
you this. So on your
Yeah.
first deal there, did you use a title company to close on that? Or
Oh,
did you
hell no.
do the paperwork
No, 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 no.
yourself?
No, no. It's a $104 property. I mean, that I still do this now. I still do this now, but back then, what was hot in the streets was doing it yourself. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not learn how to properly do that back then. I know how to do it now.
Right.
Um, but back then I was just like, okay, I just follow the courses and I don't know, I don't remember exactly what I checked back then.
Mhm.
But compared to what I do now, like I probably could have got myself into trouble. Not real trouble where I'm like legally trouble, but like, oh, I bought something that owed a bunch of taxes, right? I could
Right.
have done. Um,
Now
luckily, that didn't happen. Wasn't a problem.
for our viewers that are new to land investing, now I know the answer to this, but tell them you said you won't get into real trouble. You might owe a bunch of taxes. So
Right.
explain why if you buy a piece of land for $100 and it has $15,000 in back taxes, how that's not a real problem for an investor.
Well, to be honest, if you don't pay it, nothing really happens to you. You will lose the property, and if you only spent $100 on it, you
Exactly.
basically lost $100. This stuff doesn't go on your credit. Nothing. No one else knows. You just lost a property, and it's not like there's a
Right.
house on it. The county will auction it off and hopefully to recoup some of those back taxes that are owed. But in general, that's it. You just lose access to the property and somebody else gets it. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
what
a
it's
lot of
about.
people don't know that. Okay. So you had $100 property. All right, keep
Right.
going. Sorry to interrupt your story.
No, no, please, anytime, because I still long and boring story. We need questions. As I said, I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to sell. It took a while, and I did what was popular with a lot of newbies was terms. Basically, hey, give me a down payment, pay me in monthly installments. I will give you the property once everything is paid off. A lot of people like that model because that way they can actually have what they call passive income.
Mhm.
But what a lot of people don't tell you is depending on who you sell to would dictate how passive it is. My first two people I sold to were wonderful people, on time with every payment. If there was any issue, plenty of communication to let me know. But since then, I had people who I had to chase, I had to find. They were ducking me. I was bill collector. I felt like, you ever seen that TV show Cheaters back in
Yeah.
the day? I felt like the host and
Yep.
Cheaters trying to find people. It was ridiculous. It was a mess. So it wasn't very passive. It was very active, to be honest. But I was doing this for a few years. I got another mentor who was more hands-on. He showed me how to do proper due diligence, give me the different deed types of what they meant and why use what, um, how to streamline a lot of my operations. Because at one point I was using like this 2-page offer letter,
Mhm.
and it didn't help more people do things, and just the whole system I was using was inefficient. So
Okay.
he helped me out with that. But honestly, because of self-limiting beliefs, not truly understanding the power of this business model, and to be frank, getting shiny object syndrome, seeing what like hearing about internet marketers and what they were doing, I
Mhm.
kind of lost interest in land. And the reason why is because I've always, since I was a software engineer, I always saw myself doing something where I tell the computer to do something, it does it. I sit back on the beach with my hands like this
Right.
and then, collect checks. Since land was a little bit more hands-on, I was like, oh man, I must be doing something wrong. And I got lured by all the fancy talk of like, oh, look at me, I'm in my Bentley. Look at me, I'm in my Lamborghini. Look at my big fancy house. All I do is sell things on the internet. So I tried to get into that. The good news is I did learn some skills. So I learned a bit how to sell. I learned a bit how to
Mhm.
write good ad copy. I learned a bit of like using internet to sell a product. The
Right.
bad news is I was a terrible internet marketer. I was a terrible affiliate marketer. So I did make some money, but it paled in comparison to what I was doing in land.
Right.
Now around this time, now I'll get your popcorn ready because now the story actually gets interesting. I decide I don't want to be a software engineer anymore. I didn't want to play with the office politics. I was in the game industry, and that industry itself is very volatile. If the game is not a hit, your company probably dies, or a lot of people
Right.
get laid off. It's a very much, hey, we were in this other company development house together. We moved together. We're in the inside. If you're not part of that group for certain places, it's it's a very miserable place.
Mhm.
The last place I worked for was Warner Brothers. Working on IP like Batman,
Yeah.
Superman, et cetera, Harry Potter. My colleagues were wonderful, great people. I loved them. It was the people above me that I wasn't too fond of. So, in middle fingers in the air, I quit my job, and I also decided I'm gonna quit land investing. And I'm gonna do this internet marketing thing full time. Famous last words. Famous last words. So that was the end of 2018. 2019 rolls around. I write a book about my experiences. It was great. I talk about my land stuff and all the things I've learned in my internet marketing journey.
Right.
Most of it self-development, how to really go after your dreams, how to really tackle an internet course, things that I really felt passionate about.
Mhm.
I went to a couple of self-development things, but in April of 2019, I lose my grandmother. It was very
Oh.
tough. I realized that because of the estate planning didn't happen the way it should have because she had dementia later in her life. So things that were in place kind of lost its place. So we had to pay a
Right.
lot of the funeral expenses. I didn't have the money because I quit my job and I wasn't necessarily doing a great job internet marketing to help pay. I had my wife help out. That was that. I lived with my grandmother most of my life, so it was tough, but it was expected. It's your grandmother.
Still
A
tough.
few months later, I lose my grandfather. He wasn't
Oh
taking care of
man.
himself too well. That was a little bit more unexpected, but he was in the Army, so everything was taken care of. But it was tough. But I was at least glad to say, hey, I don't have to worry about those two anymore. But in the Halloween of 2019, I actually lost my mother. My mother
Golly.
was murdered by my younger brother. My younger brother has, I guess, what now we will call schizophrenia, but back then my mom just said, "Oh, he's just bipolar." And on Halloween, his favorite day, he decided to kill her. And so, as you can see, 2019 was a very rough time for me. Not only was I not making money, I was frustrated with the direction that I'd taken my life, but then to lose my family
Hmm.
all in 1 year within months apart, it
Wow.
was very difficult, very difficult. So as I'm trying to pretend, put a brave face on and act like
Right.
everything is okay, I'm realizing, hey, my savings are pretty much wiped out. My wife is like, what the hell's going on? Why aren't you just working? Why don't you have a job? You used to make good money as a software engineer. Why aren't you doing that anymore? I can't be like, well, I'm doing something better. It's building up. At this point, I'm trying internet marketing. I tried coaching other people based on my book.
Hmm.
I'm trying all types of stuff. 2020 rolls around and I find myself early in the morning, about 5 a.m. on Craigslist looking for just some way to bring in money, thinking I can just like, if I just get this ad to hit, if I can get this Facebook thing to work, then
Right.
everything will be fixed. And I realized I have a high income skill of selling land. What the hell am I doing?
Hmm.
At that time, my mentor calls, he's been calling me up, checking in on me. He knows what happened to my mother. He's like,
Right.
hey man, you need to get back into this. I'm like, I don't have any money. He's like, if you get another person in, I'll reduce the coaching fees, but you need this. And I got some new techniques that will really help you out right now. I'm like, all right.
Hmm.
So I have to scrounge up for some money. I didn't have any. I literally have negative $275 in my business account. I had two over maxed out credit cards. My personal account was pretty much double digits.
Right.
I didn't know what to do. Luckily, I bought some like stock back in like 2008, 2009 that I was able to sell. It was like in Google or something. So I was able to get the coaching fee and a little bit left over so that I can actually buy some property.
Right.
So I did a new texting campaign, which was new to me at the time. So I was able to save money, so I didn't have to mail. It
Hmm.
didn't take long for me to find my first deal of 2020. I bought two lots for $375 each, and I ended up selling them both for 1,800 a piece.
Okay.
I was back. I was back. So 2020 was just a blur of just taking things with a lot more intention, a lot more serious than I did when I was just doing it as a side hustle.
Hmm.
I seen the depths of not being able to provide. I seen the problems of not taking this seriously and not really studying and learning and just expecting somebody to tell me everything. And I took matters into my own hand. Yes, I needed coaching. Yes, I needed
Right.
that. But I had to be responsible for my results. So all the things I've learned in that 2019 from going to different seminars and different personal development retreats and internet marketing things and meeting all types of people, I was able to put together. And then I came up with what I call the escape velocity strategy and land investing. So it's a way basically when you're starting from very little. Again, I had an overdrawn account
Hmm.
to end up from between April and December of 2020, I did $106,000. I did my
Oh,
taxes
wow.
recently, so I know that. That's revenue. I don't my profit. I don't remember what the profit was, but I keep roughly about 60 to 70% of the money, depending
Hmm.
on. We'll see what happens after taxes come through, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Let's
So
let me ask you this. I just want to take it in a little bit of a different direction, just because of some of the stuff you talked on. You
mhm,
mentioned mindset, and you mentioned all the stuff that you're going through, that you went through at the time, and then you climb back out of it by taking responsibility. What would your recommendation be to somebody who, it's been a rough year this
mhm.
past year? What would you recommend to somebody they know their mindset's not right, and they know they've had a rough year, and they know they need to do something, but they're having a hard time taking action? What would you recommend to that person if they're watching right now?
Okay, so I have a few things
Okay.
because I talked about this often with a lot of people. My biggest thing first is to understand your current identity. Basically, how do you see yourself now? And a lot of the things that we see ourselves as, and that, how we kind of picture ourselves is based off when we were kids and as we're
Hmm.
growing up, as we're kind of learning about the world. So understanding that will help you see why you might be in certain areas. So for me personally, the reason why I got so easily blinded is because I thought I can do things a certain way, or things had to be done a certain way. Hence, like, oh, this land thing is not working for me, even though it was. I want to do it this way. The land thing, the people who are in land don't have this lifestyle that everybody's flashing on Instagram. I want that. I think I like to think big, but I didn't think about what really went into that. That'll be first. Once you understand your identity, you can understand what you want to be, kind of develop that alter ego, so to speak.
Hmm.
And in general, when I did this anyways, I was able to start to surround myself with people that would help uplift me and help me be that person I needed to be. Sometimes it's with being gentle and understanding what I went through with the deaths of my mother and my family. Other times I needed tough love,
Hmm.
hey, get your head out of your you know what. It's time to
Right.
get to work. And being around those people who were I was aspiring to be like, or
Hmm.
they were further along in their journey than I was in mine. So I had something to kind of chase after, truly helped me out. So then when I understood where I was and what type of person I saw myself, and I'm like, you know what, there's certain aspects I don't like. I want
Right.
to change that. And I started to like, well, how do I want to be? What type of person do I want to be? And start to cultivate the identity. Things start to fall into place because it's not like, oh man, I gotta watch this training video or I gotta read this book. It's like, well, I'm that type of person who watches training videos. So it was
Hmm.
a no-brainer. I'm the type of person who reads books. So it's a no-brainer. I'm the type of person who doesn't mind driving a little further out to meet with these successful people.
Right.
So instead of things becoming like a chore, it was just who I am. And the beautiful thing is, I learned that change like that doesn't have to take long. It can
Hmm.
actually be very quick and instantaneous if you make the decision and you stick with it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's some wise words. Hey guys, if you like investing and entrepreneurship, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification icon so you don't miss any of our updates. So we can go back to your land stuff. So
Okay.
you did 106,000.
Yes.
That was 2019.
2020.
Okay.
2020. The
And so
when I was
so how
doing
are
like a
things
side
going now?
hustle, well, I don't know right now. I gotta look because it's only May 2021. I'm on pace to at least double that.
Okay.
I'm on pace to at least double that. And second, I was talking about identity. I'm like, okay, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get the same results. Those results aren't bad. In fact, I know a lot of people will love the same results I have because I work for a few hours a day and I made a lot of money. Great. But during that 2019 year, I got myself in a ton of debt.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just free money where I can easily, just play with it and be good. So I have to pay down that debt. And as a person, it bugs me that I have so much credit card debt that's not necessarily being leveraged in a way that some people can use credit card debt to buy assets and things that help them make more. For me, it was just paying for things I didn't need or just paying bills.
Mm-hmm.
And now this credit card debt, the interest rate is high. The difference also, when I first started land investing, I had a day job. So it was easy to kind of do things and not have my business need to pay for my life. But
Right.
now that I was doing this on my own, I had to start to take money out of the business to pay myself. And that kind of made growth slower. So I decided, you know what? I need to make different decisions. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep getting the same results, and I'm never going to climb out of this hole I made for myself. So now I'm looking to do bigger deals. I'm looking,
Okay.
instead of trying to fund things myself, get investment partners, which a lot of people do, or if that, maybe figure out a way to save a bit more money so I can buy bigger deals on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am right now. And then obviously, new deals, new decisions come with new issues that you get
Right.
the privilege of solving and figuring out. So
So let me go back to land a little bit. Just out of curiosity, do you invest in land in your area that you can go see? Do you invest in land in other states? How do you kind of select the criteria for what you invest in, or is it just based on where the deals are at?
I've never, so I live in the Bay Area. Like if I was able to buy land here, I'd probably be very, very rich.
Yeah.
So I've never bought land here. I actually did buy some land in California, not too far from where I lived. It was a deal thrown in. This is before I quit and came back to land investing.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a parcel for like $500. I ended up selling it for $2,000. But at the time, it took a while for me to get to that point. But currently, I always buy land in a few places. Why? Just because, I don't know, Texas, Florida are the biggest places. Every now and then I might get something somewhere else, maybe in Nevada. I was really big in Nevada when I first got started.
Yeah.
And how do I find it? Well, I basically look at what's available in the market now, see what the going prices are, so a regular search on Zillow or lands.com or whatever. And then from there, I see, okay, if a lot is selling, let's just say for $6,000, I know if I try to find other owners in that area and I offer them, I don't know, $2,000, 1,500, most people will say no, but a few will say yes. And I only need
Mm-hmm.
one or two people to say yes. So then I'll
Absolutely.
start to contact those folks so I can too sell something for $6,000.
Right.
Now, it has to be an area where I see a lot of activity going on. If I see only one thing for sale, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking on Zillow and I see like, okay, this property is at a pretty decent price, and I notice it's been on the market for 100 years, I'm like, well, maybe people don't really want this area. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of take the information you can find just being a regular consumer and try to make their best educated guess, and then just putting yourself out there and trying to get a deal.
Now, correct my thinking if I'm remembering wrong, but did you say in a previous conversation we had that you have a land investing course as
I
well, or
do.
coaching or something? Tell us a little bit
Yes,
about that.
it's actually more than a course. Right before this, we just had a check-in call. So toward the end of 2020, when I'm realizing, wow, like thinking about where I was, in 2019 at that time versus where I am in 2020, I realized I could help a lot of people do this.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going through that time trying to show people how to, coach people on internet marketing, I've never really felt confident in doing it because I wasn't good at it. I coached basketball. Currently, I've been doing it for 15, 20 years now at this point. Damn, it's been long. Um, so I understand what it is to really help somebody learn a skill, encourage them, give them tough love when needed, et cetera. I'm like, maybe I can do that with land because without this, I don't know where I'd be. And I've been noticing people on my Facebook feed because of the COVID and all that, they're having a really tough time. I'm like, well, I went through the same situation, but my business hadn't slowed down. I actually did well. Other people they lost their jobs or just the nature of their business couldn't, since they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be with other people and things like that. So I'm like, all right, well, let me show people how to do this. So I put together a free Facebook group. It's called Land Investing for Professional Millennials. Why the professional millennials? Well, because I'm a millennial and I was a professional. Not that anybody, if you're not a millennial or not a professional, as in like you have a day job. Not that I won't let you in. It's just that maybe you might not vibe with me the way you would with another person teaching this
Mm-hmm.
subject matter. But then that's a free group. But within that, those who want to learn a little bit more, who want to go in depth, who really want to study the way I study, not only do I have a curriculum, but I have a group that we invest together. So I'm telling them all the things I'm going through. When they need help, I'm right there via phone or Slack message or what have you. We meet twice a week. The first call is like, hey, this is our goals for the week. Let's get them done. Let's hold each other accountable.
Okay.
Second call on a Thursday, which I had right before meeting you.
Right.
Are we getting our stuff done? If we're not, what's going on? And I've often found it's not because somebody doesn't understand. As you see, the land investing model is
Mm-hmm.
pretty simple. It's that identity that we have, those roadblocks that we have that we may not be aware of, those blind spots that me as a coach can help you walk through that so you can understand what may be holding you back. For example, I have a guy in the group. He was like, he's a truck driver. He really does not want to be a truck driver anymore. He's been doing it for 20 odd years. He's like, hey, this land thing could really be it. I've actually done some land investing at some point. I don't know why I stopped. I'm like, hey, I can show you the ropes. But when it came time to do the simple stuff, just like, hey, find an area, start contacting those folks, he found himself procrastinating. He's like, you know what? I realized I'm on social media a lot. And with that conversation, we understood social media was stopping him, but we knew, like, look, that's not the real issue. I mean, it's a problem, but that's not the real issue. So then we went through our actual coaching session and we got deeper. We found out it was basically the way that he was actually relating to his significant other, and how their relationship was going. And he felt like, look, if I start being successful at this, things are going to change and it may not be for what I like.
Right.
So obviously there's still things to work out there, but that's the type of like environment that I'm trying to build in this group. And obviously when people have questions on like, hey, this deed says this, or this person says that, how do I respond? You get that as well. And as I'm doing new things, I'm like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing today. This may be good for you in the future. Check it out. And yeah, we're holding each other accountable. We're making sure we're getting stuff done. And because of that, people are getting deals. They're making money. They're getting started. Stuff that one person told me, like, you know what, if it wasn't for this other person, getting started, because they kind of started around the same time,
right,
I still would be sitting on my butt because he got something. I feel I have to do something. And then so it's like the tide that rises all the boats. So we're all winning. And it's more than just like a course coaching thing. It's the group that we're all like in it together.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. That's awesome. So if somebody wants to connect with you, is that where I should send them to that group? Is that the best place to connect, or you have somewhere else? Okay. And I'll put a link in the description for that.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions that you will answer to make sure you're in, because I don't want the spammers in a group. I'm very protective of my group. I want the people in here to enjoy it, have a good time, learn some things. So I keep the spammers out. And if you do give me that email, I will go through my escape velocity strategy. I'll send that training to you. It's literally, I literally give you everything right there, free. Give me the email so I know where to send it, and you get it. A lot of people are very shocked of how much information I give away for free, but it is what it is. As I said, it can help a lot of people, and those who want more individual instruction and want to join my investing group, then there's ways to do that as well. And by the way, there's actually a deal going on in the group where a few of us partnered up to help somebody purchase a thing, and now we're all marketing the land. It's a great thing. I love it. I'm very excited about it.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for spending some time with us, Victor, and for coming on this with me. And for those of you watching, Victor got nothing out of this. I just reached out to him and he said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. So I appreciate your time.